Hello everybody, this is Mr. McNair, and this is 7.1, Factors and Greatest Common Factors. Alright, we're going to start off by talking about factorizations. This first problem wants us to list the factorizations of 12. Now factorizations are just ways numbers can be multiplied together to get a certain product. So some of the ways that we can multiply numbers together to get 12 are 1 times 12, that's a factorization, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. Now these next two might not be as obvious, but 1 times 4 times 3, that's a factorization. That multiplies to give you 12. 2 times 2 times 3, that's also a factorization. Alright, now 2 times 2 times 3, this is called the prime factorization because all the factors are prime. Okay, 2 is a prime number, 2 is a prime number, and 3 is a prime number. That's called the prime factorization. Okay, now remember, a prime number has exactly two factors, itself and 1. Two factors, itself and 1. The number 1 is not prime because it only has one factor. So, example 1, write the prime factorization of 98. Now, whenever you're doing the prime factorization of a number, I taught it to you guys by doing your factor trees. Okay, so you're just going to start off by picking two numbers that multiply together to give you the number that they're asking you to write the prime factorization of. All right, so two numbers that multiply to 98 would be something like 2 times 49. Now notice that 2, this number right here is prime already, so we're going to stop there on that side. But the number 49, 49 isn't prime, it's composite. You can multiply 7 times 7 to give you 49. Okay, so we can see now that 7 and 7, these are both prime. So the prime factorization of 98 would be 2 times 7 times 7. All right, you could write it like that, or you could even write it as 2 times 7 squared. Okay, those are both prime factorizations of 98. All right, let's try a couple more. 40. Now, when you're doing your factor trees, it doesn't necessarily matter what two numbers you get to multiply to give you that product, as long as you make sure you go all the way. For example, in the number 40, you could have picked 4 and 10. 4 breaks down to become 2 times 2. 10 breaks down to become 5 times 2. So our prime factorization would have been 2 times 2 times 5 times 2. Or you might even have written 2 cubed times 5. That would be the prime factorization, either one of those. Now let's say, for example, that you had picked different numbers. Okay, let's say instead of 4 times 10, this time let's pick, let's say 5 times 8. Okay, 5 is prime already, but 8 breaks down to become 4 times 2. And 4 breaks down to become 2 times 2. So again, we would have 5 times 2 times 2 times 2. All right, and those are the same numbers that we had originally. We had 3 2's and 1 5. All right, and that's why we still have 2 cubed times 5. All right, let's go to the next one. 33. 33 breaks down to become 3 times 11. Both of those are prime already, so this is our prime factorization, 3 times 11. And number 19, the number 19. The number 19, well, this one really doesn't break down into anything else. I mean, you have to do 1 and 19. So technically the prime factorization could just be 19 or 1 times 19, either one. Okay. Factors that are shared by two or more whole numbers are called common factors. Okay, common factors. The greatest of these common factors is called the greatest common factor, or the GCF. So find the greatest common factor, the GCF, between 12 and 32. When you're doing the GCF, hopefully you know your factors well enough that you don't have to write out the factors every time. But if you don't know what the greatest common factor is, you can go by this method. So let's list the factors of 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. These are the numbers that multiply together to give you 12. Okay? Like 1 times 12 is 12. 2 times 6 is 12. 3 times 4 is 12. Okay, so those are the common factors, or the factors of 12. Next, let's deal with the factors of 32. 1, 2, 4, 8. Then we have 16 and 32. Okay, so 1 times 32 is 32. 2 times 16 is 32. And 4 times 8 is also 32. So these are all the factors of 32. Now, the common factors that they share between the two, they both have 1s, 2s, and 4s. So those are the common factors. The GCF, the greatest common factor, is the one that's the greatest among those. And here the GCF would be 4. So that would be the greatest common factor. Now, going into more algebraic, deeper levels of algebra when it comes to GCF, let's find the GCF between the monomials. Now, here you're going to start off by looking at the numbers, the coefficients, 15 and 9. Okay, those are our coefficients. Between 15 and 9, what's the greatest common factor? Well, that would be 3. All right? And between x cubed and x squared, what's the greatest common factor? Now remember, greatest common factor is the factor, the biggest thing that you can divide out of both of those. All right? Here we have 3 x's. Here you have 2 x's. If you need to take the same amount out of both, and you want to take as much as you can, the most you could take out of both of those is 2. Okay? So this would be 3x squared. All right? Good. Let's move on. Let's try this one. Between 18g squared and 27g cubed, what's the GCF? So again, we're going to look at our numbers, 18 and 27. The greatest common factor between 18 and 27 is 9. And then we're going to look at our variables, g squared and g cubed. Okay? Now once again, here you have 2 g's. Here you have 3 g's. You want to take the most that you can, but it has to be the same amount from both. That's why it's common factors. So the most you can take from both of them is a g squared. You can take 2 g's from both. All right? You wouldn't be able to take g cubed because this one doesn't have 3 g's to give. All right? The most you could take from both is a g squared. All right, next, find the GCF between the monomials. Well, let's look between 8 and 7. What's the greatest common factor that comes out of both of those? Well, that would be the number 1. Okay? And then here you have an x squared and a y cubed. Well, those aren't common. Okay? So since you can't take the same thing from both of them, here the GCF is just the number 1. Alright, hopefully this video has been helpful to you, and good luck studying for and preparing for your next assessment.